we've got Roger Stone coming on here in the probably top of the hour, I guess. We finally got Roger, so this should be a good interview. And I appreciate you taking the time out of your day to meet with us. So I want to get right to it. What's your reaction to what happened in Fulton County with the raid on the Fulton County Election Center by the FBI?
Well, it's about time. First of all, there's very sufficient probable cause. So for all of those lunatics on social media saying this has all been debunked, let's be very clear. A Fulton County attorney testified under oath to the Georgia State Election Board only weeks ago, saying that at least 315,000 votes were counted without signatures and without the appropriate paper backup as required by their system through their electronic system. So there's more than enough evidence to ask the Fulton County election board officials for this material. The FBI, first of all, the Justice Department asked for it twice. They were ignored. The FBI asked for it 2 weeks ago. They were ignored again. So Tulsi Gabbard, at the direction of the president and the FBI, stormed a raid to seize all of that material. More than sufficient probable cause. The overall amazing thing here is that in 2020, the mainstream media, working with the Democrats, did an incredible job of suppressing overwhelming evidence in Nevada, in Arizona, in Pennsylvania, in Georgia, of voter fraud. No, Trump did not bring 60 legal cases and lose all of them. Trump brought 60 legal cases and none of them were heard. They were all dismissed on a technicality. But then anyone like myself who just asked questions, simple questions, were immediately silenced and canceled, as if your First Amendment right doesn't give you the right to question the outcome of the election. Pennsylvania, 205,000 more voters voted than are registered to vote. Impossible, not possible. Georgia, as we've seen, there's a lot of misinterpretation, of course, about Donald Trump's phone conversation with Secretary of State Raffensperger. 7 attorneys were on the line when this happened. Trump does not tell him to go find 11,000 votes. What he says, in essence, is you have already miscounted over 300,000 illegal votes. I only lost by 11,000. If you remove the legal votes, I win. But taken out of context, of course, the left continues to insist that Trump was telling the Secretary of State to fabricate 11,000 voters. Read the whole transcript or listen to it. It's very long. That's not what it says. And then, of course, you have people like Senator Tim Kaine. People may not remember him. He ran for vice president with one of the greatest epic criminals in American history, Hillary Clinton. He kept complaining, what is Tulsi Gabbard doing? Let's be very clear, Senator. Just because you can't read the Constitution or the law, we can. It falls well within Tulsi Gabbard's parameter of responsibilities. Protecting the national security, which includes the security of our elections, falls squarely within her wheelhouse. So yesterday, of course, the Wall Street Journal, which used to be a news organization, today it's a propaganda front for the deranged left. Let me be very clear. Virtually nothing you read in the Wall Street Journal is either true or accurate. It's all BS. It's all twisted BS. They use that ancient masthead and that once respectable name to try to sell you crap. But they reported that a whistleblower had made a complaint against Tulsi Gabbard, the contents of which, of course, are top secret. They're national security. They can't tell us what they are. But then you have to go down 4 paragraphs to see that they were fully investigated and dismissed as not credible. The deep state desperately fears Tulsi Gabbard. Why? Well, first of all, unlike the current CIA director, who was the director of national intelligence and could have declassified all the Russian collusion documents during Donald Trump's first term, but didn't, Tulsi Gabbard followed the president's directions and she declassified all the documents that prove that there was a seditious conspiracy that began in the Oval Office in April of 2015 and continues all the way through the Russian collusion hoax, all the way through two completely fraudulent impeachment inquiries, all the way through the theft of the 2020 election, all the way to the so-called documents case against Donald Trump, including the Fed insurrection on January 6th. That's pretty fallen apart on them, hasn't it? And then, of course, lastly, in Operation Arctic Frost, an extra constitutional operation to take down a sitting president. Same group of people, same seditious conspiracy, all legally vulnerable in the Southern District of Florida, because the final act of this conspiracy was the raid on Mar-a-Lago.
So what actual power does Tulsi Gabbard have? I mean, obviously she has investigative and discovery power, but beyond that, is there any, constitutional executive authority she has?
She doesn't have the authority to charge people, to indict people, but she does have the ability to produce overwhelming evidence that would legitimize those charges. So it is unfortunate, based on my sources, there's two pieces of this. There are the paper ballots. We all know that story. 300,000 unfolded paper ballots pop up in Detroit at 3:00 in the morning. We've seen the video of them being delivered. We've seen the video of them being taken out from under the desk and counted. This is not rocket science. And the Fulton County example is a perfect example of that. But then there is the question of the machines. The machines are connected to the internet. We were told they weren't. They are. There is overwhelming evidence that the machines, both those produced by the Venezuelan company and those by Conic, a Chinese company, were involved in manipulating and changing data. This can be proven. Of that, there is no doubt. Now, there are some inside the Central Intelligence Agency and other agencies who are not anxious for this material to be examined. Why? Well, conjecture on my part, because they have used this same technology to rig foreign elections and perhaps even our 2020 election themselves. So you have an inter-administration battle going on. Those leaks about Tulsi Gabbard, which are really meaningless, they came from someone in the government. You can bet on that.
So what is DOJ doesn't have a great track record. I won't go past that, but what are your thoughts there? Is Pam Bondi going to stay? Thoughts?
Look, I think in this particular case, because I want to stay focused on election integrity, because we get a second chance at this. This narrative was destroyed by the mainstream media. If you dared to say the election was stolen, you might get charged criminally, as Rudy Giuliani did, and a number of others. So I think that at this point, if Tulsi Gabbard and others raise as much evidence, as much proof, if they put as much proof out in public as they can of irregularities, anomalies, and fraud in our elections, frankly, Pam Bondi and the Justice Department will have no choice.
So that leads me to another issue. I put out an article yesterday. I mean, it's obvious the FBI has had for a long time counterintelligence responsibility. There's a lot of intelligence infiltration and activity on our streets, like in Minnesota, likely using foreign actors. Why is that, in your opinion? Is it just this battle inside our government still?
Look, I think it's abundantly clear due to some of the extraordinary citizen journalists reporting, particularly by one reporter, Cam Higbee, that what we're facing in Minnesota is not a spontaneous, peaceful protest. It's not indigenous. This is a military, paramilitary style, planned, well-oiled, high-tech insurrection. When you set up a system to identify ICE agents and Border Patrol agents who are in the process of conducting the arrests of illegal immigrants, and you send a team of thugs there via internet to interfere, that is, by definition, insurrection. You are obstructing federal agents in the performance of their duties. Who's paying for this? Somebody's paying for this. The lieutenant governor is involved. She's one of the administrators of the site. Governor Tim Walz's chief political operative and the campaign manager of his campaigns for governor is an administrator of the site. Here's a simple question. Why have they not been arrested? What they're doing is illegal. It is textbook insurrection. So I'm still hopeful that people will realize what's going on there. And of course, Donald Trump has the ultimate nuclear option, and that is the Insurrection Act of 1807. I don't think he wants to use it, but there is, I think we have to admit, some difference between the ICE agents who are generally speaking, have more law enforcement experience, who have substantially more training, and the Border Patrol agents, not as much law enforcement experience, and their training appears somewhat thin. But theoretically, when arrests are made, they're supposed to be done by a team of 6, 3 from ICE, 3 from the Border Patrol. The Border Patrol officer's job is to actually arrest the dangerous illegal criminal, people who have criminal records in their country of origin or here in the United States, or are awaiting trial here in the United States. And the ICE agent's job is to try to prevent anyone from interfering with that arrest. Well, in the incident in which Alex Pretty was unfortunately shot and killed, there were no ICE agents present. They were all Border Patrol agents. That's a violation of the president's policy. I think it's why he's making changes at the Border Patrol. But for those who say Trump blinked, Trump backed down, Trump threw in the towel, they must not have watched the news yesterday, because the arrests of illegals continued at the same pace in Minnesota. The president, I think, has wisely reached out to Tim Walz, or vice versa, but it doesn't matter. Walz will never agree to the president's conditions, which were that Minnesota and Minneapolis immediately turn over all of the illegals in their jails. They won't do that. That ICE that the state and local government agree that anytime an illegal is arrested now on a new crime, not the crime of entering the United States, of course, they'll be turned over to ICE, and that the state and local police will support ICE agents in the performance of their duties, as opposed to either working against them or standing by idly while their lives are endangered.
Your government doesn't care about you. That's why you need a medical emergency kit. It contains life-saving medications like ivermectin, Z-Pak, and antibiotics. Stock them before they block them.
A warm welcome here at the National Press Club. Welcome to the journalists, welcome to the Embraer team, and welcome to the other guests that we have here. We're going to announce, and as some of you guessed it right when they came in, the first E2 order by an American operator. And that operator is Avello. We believe this is really a strategic shift to unlock profitability for the customer. I'm very pleased that we have Andrew Levy here as the CEO of Avello, and I'm very pleased to give the stage to share a little bit more about what Avello is going to do with the E2 195. Thank you very much.
Couldn't be more excited to be here as part of this historic announcement. We have such a great cultural fit as companies, so we're very, very excited to be Embraer's newest customer. We launched our airline in April of 21, and our target is focusing on small secondary airports of large metro areas. We've carried over 8 million customers since we started on 63,000 flights. And we've done all these things with 1,200 of the greatest crew members I could ever imagine having, and many of them are here with me today. This is the right airplane for us. It's going to open up opportunities for us that no other aircraft can serve. The best thing about the airplane, of course, is you will not find a middle seat on this airplane. It doesn't exist. We won't have any to offer. It's going to be the best cabin in the United States, and we're so excited about that. This is going to elevate our experience to the highest level, and we think our customers are absolutely going to love the airplane.
So you've written, thank you for that. You've written 3 really interesting articles recently on the Miami Independent. I just want to go through them. First one's on Lindsay Halligan and the sabotage of American justice. What drove you to write that? I think you were very passionate about that.
Well, I'm very frustrated by the fact that we have a tradition in the U.S. Senate in which the two U.S. senators from any given state have to give their acquiescence to the appointment of a U.S. Attorney. It's called a blue slip. It's not a law, it's a Senate tradition. And of course, all the Republican senators gave Joe Biden all the U.S. attorneys that he wanted, despite the fact that some of them were radical leftists. Now, no Democrat from no state will vote to confirm a U.S. attorney for Donald Trump. It's a problem. Uh, the After there is a vacancy, the federal judges in a given district are allowed by law to appoint someone. Well, who do you think they appoint? They appoint a leftist Democrat who reflects their views. President Trump has the authority to fire that person, and he has done so. In the case of the Eastern District of Virginia, Eric Siebert was the U.S. attorney. He was recommended by Glenn, made all his money in China, Youngkin, and the two Democrat senators from Virginia, the epic criminal Mark Warner, who was busted in the Russian collusion case, and of course the aforementioned Tim Kaine. It seems that Mr. Siebert, who was charged with investigating FBI Director James Comey on the narrow charge of whether he lied to Congress, failed to disclose that he had a conflict of interest. I broke this story. His father-in-law, his wife's father, was the godfather to James Comey's daughter and also had represented Comey as a personal attorney. Siebert should have recused himself, but instead he was preparing a 50-page report exonerating Comey and coming up with reasons why Comey should not be prosecuted. Trump correctly fired Siebert. He has that authority, and he appointed Lindsey Halligan for a 100-day term as the interim U.S. attorney. Now, the federal courts, 3 federal judges specifically, voided that appointment, and that decision is wrong, incorrect, wrongly decided. We'll lose on appeal. In the meantime, the statute of limitations has run. James Comey walks on the crime of perjury before Congress. Then, strangely enough, even though Lindsey Halligan, who's never been a federal prosecutor, but is a very accomplished lawyer, goes to a grand jury and gets an indictment of Letitia James. But they void that indictment, like they voided the indictment of Comey, not based on the evidence, not based on the case, but based on the incorrect decision that Lindsey Halligan's appointment was illegal, and therefore the indictment could not go forward. Then the Justice Department, for reasons I don't understand, they tried 2 more times to indict the New York Attorney General, Letitia James, but the man they send in to do it has no experience in criminal law, hasn't been before a grand jury since 2011, and his expertise is in civil law. It's a documents case. My dog could get an indictment. It's just not that complicated. Either she did or she did not sign a document under oath saying that she would be a full-time resident of a home in Florida, when by Constitution, to be Attorney General of New York, she has to be a full-time resident of New York. No one can live in 2 places at the same time.
So tell us about Trey Gowdy. You wrote a very impassioned piece about Mr. Gowdy possibly going into the AG role.
Yeah, my sources saw Lindsey Graham and Trey Gowdy dining with the president and overheard Senator Graham enthusiastically pushing the idea of Trey Gowdy as the next Attorney General. It doesn't matter what you think of Pam Bondi, and she's been a friend of mine for a long time. I'm still hopeful that we will get the accountability and justice the American people deserve on a number of these issues. But Trey Gowdy is all bark and no bite. I mean, he refused, and when he headed the probe into Benghazi, he refused to blame Hillary Clinton. You remember Hillary Clinton claimed that the attack on Benghazi was caused by a video that was shown in Libya, in a country where 98% of the people are not on the internet. Not possible. Not possible. And if that was true, why did the mob that attacked our embassy have a floor plan, a blueprint of the entire facility, and knew exactly where the safe room was? No, this was a this was a paramilitary operation, and it was caused by Hillary Clinton. But you could never get Trey Gowdy to actually say that. So he talks a great game. He also said, as pertains to the Russian collusion hoax, that John Brennan should not be prosecuted, that the public shame of his involvement should be sufficient punishment for him. I mean, Trey Gowdy is, I don't even think he's a conservative. He's certainly not a MAGA Republican. It would have been a horrific nomination if it was ever seriously under consideration. I'm not sure it really was, but I was taking no chances.
Got it. So last one I wanted to ask you about, the title is Narco-Controlled Election Fraudster Bernardo Arevalo Emerges as Maduro of Guatemala. Obviously, Trump is focusing on Latin America, Fortress America, all the way up through Greenland. What's your thoughts on Guatemala?
Well, first of all, I think we have to look at the region as a whole. Because the president had the courage to examine the completely fraudulent conviction of President Juan Orlando Hernandez in Honduras, who was convicted solely on the testimony of two murderers and drug traffickers that he extradited to the United States for trial, who were convicted of those crimes here in the United States, but then were let out of jail and released from long prison sentences in return for their false testimony against the president, claiming that he was a narco trafficker. I read the case. No evidence of the transfer of drugs, no evidence of the transfer of money. He was convicted solely in a New York jury where they of course, associated him with Donald Trump because he cooperated with the Trump administration on drug interdiction, where he was easily convicted. So the president's courageous decision to pardon Hernandez, I think, was responsible for the Nationalist Party ousting the Marxists and winning the election 2 days later in Honduras. Major victory. Now that Trump has made this move in Venezuela, and he has cut off, therefore, the oil for Cuba, as well as China, I think that is yet another blow for democracy in this hemisphere. Now you look at the election in Costa Rica, and you have yet the election of another pro-freedom candidate. So freedom is on the move in this hemisphere. The Guatemalan embassy, a terrific piece that I read by a good friend of mine, James Judge, talks about actual drug trafficking and espionage being conducted out of the U.S. embassy in Guatemala. Urge you to take a look at that. Guatemala is a problem. The president there is a problem, but very clearly, Marco Rubio and Donald Trump know that, and hopefully they will do something about it.
Roger, thank you. Where can people follow you and listen to your shows? You got multiple media outlets.
Sure. So you can go to stonezone.com, absolutely free subscription there. You'll find all my radio shows. You'll find my daily writing. You can go to stonecoldtruth.com. That's my Substack. That's where I put my most important writings. And of course, every day at 8 p.m. Eastern time, you can go to wabcradio.com, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 nights a week, 5 weeknights a week for the Stone Zone. Then on Sunday, if you're really a glutton for punishment, 2 hours from 3 to 5, the Roger Stone Show, again at wabcradio.com. Thank you so much, Todd. Great to be with you.
Thank you, Roger. Really appreciate your time. Take care. Have a great day.